Creating healthy financial habits is just as important for teens and young adults as it is for older adults. By starting early, you can help your teen or young adult learn valuable money lessons and proper money management before they make big mistakes that impact them for years, if not decades. I was fortunate enough to have a high school teacher that actually had us go through Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. Whether you like him or not, the lessons around budgeting were very eye-opening to me as a student, and I utilized that information for many years to come. So in today's video, I want to talk about financial literacy for teens, what you can cover with your student, what's important to teach them, and how this can really benefit them in the long run. Now make sure you hit subscribe because every single week we're releasing a new strategy to help your student work towards that debt-free degree. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System, and that's what we do. Primarily by helping families secure scholarships, but really there are so many different strategies that we can use in order to help build strong financial futures rather than ones where we're just taking on really tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. Now, most schools unfortunately do not cover financial literacy. We're seeing an increase in states requiring this, but it is still not nearly as widespread as it needs to be. So that means that us as parents or caregivers, as the adults, we need to step in and make sure that we are teaching this skill set to our students before they leave the nest. Now, comment below, has your school district taught your student any kind of financial literacy? Have they taken any classes in it? Let me know in the comments. I'd be curious to see. Now let's talk about why financial literacy matters. And I'm sure you already know the importance of it if you're watching this video, but it really sets up their success for their future. It takes on average 21 years to pay back student loans, even though they're told that they're only going to be borrowing them for 10 years max. So we can see right there that students that are 16, 17, 18 years old are deciding to borrow dollars that they are going to be paying back on longer than they've been alive. That is crazy. So the consequences of what we're doing, and that's specific to student loans, never mind we're talking about budgeting, credit cards, car loans, etc., all these other pieces of financial literacy, these can literally impact your students' remaining part of their life, the rest of their life. This can affect their credit scores, which affects their ability to borrow, which affects their ability to buy a home and build equity and have liquid money to put into retirement. It really is such a massive topic, which is why we focus on that staying out of debt piece for college. But still, having some of these conversations with your student now can really set them up for success. So even though there are a million topics in this area, I'm going to give you 5 specific tips on how to work with your student on financial literacy. The first tip is to teach them how to budget. Now, maybe you as a family, maybe you don't even have a budget, so this could be something that you do together. In the description, I am going to link to my video on budgeting for teens. This is a great video that you can watch after this one to work with your student on creating that budget. Second is to help your student learn the difference between needs versus wants. Now, this is challenging because it is proven by psychologists that teens actually do not have the ability to think in long-term consequences. This is why borrowing student debt doesn't seem nearly as serious to them as it does to you. So talking to them about what is a need and what is a want is actually important. You might assume that they just know it, but they may not. So the way that I would recommend defining this is a need is something that you need in everyday life, such as food, clothing, unless it's just the latest fad like these bell-bottom jeans that are coming back, and shelter. Now, a want is a nice to have. Can we continue our life without this? Without a major hindrance. This might be a vacation or a new video game that we want. This is where budgeting can really come in, where we can categorize things with needs versus wants, and it can be very eye-opening for students. Third is to seek out employment. So recommending them getting a job, just a part-time job, it's actually shown that if they work 20 hours or less, it improves their GPA. So this will teach them so many skills, but getting that job and having some money come in we'll just start teaching them that money management side. Are they saving some? Do they donate some? Do they get some for fun? So I've even seen parents where when they're giving an allowance, they have 3 envelopes that their children split the money between, where it's save, donate, and fun, or whatever your envelopes are that you want them to be. Maybe saving isn't a priority, or maybe donating isn't, but having them divide that money now will help them do that when they are out of the house. Now, jobs don't have to be the grocery store, though there's also great lessons there as well. I worked in a grocery store before, but it can be side hustles where it's things like pet sitting or graphic design, gigs online. It could be mowing lawns. It can be official part-time jobs, like I mentioned, at a grocery store or a restaurant, summer jobs, weekend jobs, jobs that they just do over holiday breaks. There are so many different ideas when it comes to ways to make money. In fact, in Debt Free Degree Lab, we have a lesson with dozens of different ideas on how students can make money. This will also help them learn the value of a dollar. When they start seeing how many hours they need to put in order to pay for something, that really can open up their eyes to how expensive something is when they convert it to, what do you mean I have to work an entire week to pay for this? Now, the fourth thing that you can do with your student for financial literacy is to be transparent and honest. You would be amazed at how many students I've met and discussed things with where they don't know their family's financial situation at all. They have no clue what the family makes. They have no clue if the family's in debt. They really just live life without discussing money and treating it like a taboo topic. I know this can be very uncomfortable. Money challenges, money topics and triggers are so common. But this is where you can change that cycle by really making that topic something that we discuss in the family. You are changing generations to come. So being open and honest can be talking about the family budget. What can we realistically afford each month? How much free money do we have? What disposable income do we have in order to spend? Or how are we able to afford that vacation? What sacrifices have we had to make? What financial mistakes have we made in the past that we've had to learn from as adults? Keeping that line of communication open, it also opens up the opportunities for them to ask you questions rather than, say, when they're 18, they just sign up for something because they can without even talking to you about it first. Now, the fifth thing that you can do for your student to help them with financial literacy is to teach them the difference between good debt and bad debt and the important terminology around all of these financial topics. For example, credit cards are typically bad debt for a student unless they're really mature. I actually was very mature. I got a credit card as soon as I turned 18 because I wanted to build my credit, but I knew the importance of paying it off every single month. So for me, actually, it was just a way to rack up points. It was basically a debit card for me. I paid off the entire balance every month. I never spent more than what I made. But that said, not all students are like that. So credit cards definitely depend on the student. Secondly, bad debt, unnecessary student loans. I have met students where they thought that they just had extra spending money from the university, and later they found out that they borrowed $13,000 more than what they actually needed to cover the bill. So if we can, we want our student to only borrow what they need, which if you're here, you should be working on ways to get them to not have to borrow anything at all. But that said, if they have to borrow, borrowing the bare minimum, that way they have to budget, they have to earn money to pay for some of the things rather than just borrowing all the money. That will make a huge difference, and it'll definitely decrease those monthly payments down the road and overall the cost of college. We have an entire playlist on student loans, so make sure you check that out after this video. We'll link to that in the description as well. And going off of that, make sure that your student's applying for scholarships. So if you're not even sure where to begin with that, or if you haven't attended our free training in the past, make sure that you do. It's the scholarshipsystem.com/free training, where I cover exactly where to find these legitimate scholarships that we can use in order to avoid the student loans. Now, going off of this, talking about the bad debt and the terminology, in this fifth one, I also want to explain the importance of explaining the difference between fixed interest rates and variable interest rates, or just interest rates in general. Your student may not understand what this means. What do you mean I put $20 on the credit card, but I have to pay back $25? That doesn't sound fair. Well, that's how it is. So explaining these terms to your student are very important as well. Why is this important? Bankrate did a survey and found that almost half of borrowers didn't even know what their interest rate was on credit cards. The average interest rate is 20%. So that means everything we buy, we need to add on 20% on the cost if we are paying interest on it. So this is a really big difference for students, especially if they're spending a few $1,000s over the semester. Okay, so that said, just a quick recap, we covered 5 different ways that you can help your student build their financial literacy. This is so important in so many different ways. I could just do, well, there are entire channels only on this topic, but this is why we do our specific piece of helping students avoid student loan debt. But still, there are so many different pieces that you as an adult, as a parent, as a caregiver, can really help guide them in the right direction and literally change the trajectory of their life. Okay, if you found this helpful, make sure you hit subscribe because every week we release a new strategy to help your family work towards that debt-free degree. Again, my name is Jocelyn with the Scholarship System. I'll see you next week.